Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we turn to talking about UFC, or Ultimate Fighting Championship League. This is an Ultimate Fighting MMA fighting league that's been getting very popular in recent years. It's basically taken over and replaced what used to be more famous. Things like boxing and kickboxing and stuff used to be more famous back in the 90s, but ever since the 2000s and 2010s, UFC has dominated the fighting scenes. It's very exciting, much more modern and interesting. It's not the old school boxing matches with just punches. You're talking about punches, kicks, all kinds of crazy stuff. Usually it's hosted by Joe Rogan. They've also got some other great people in there. Dana White, I believe, runs UFC. He's actually a Trump supporter. And that's what we're about to talk about today. Today we're talking about a certain fighter. His name is Jorge. This is his Twitter page. He appears to be super based. He's a Cuban American. He trains with the greatest camp in the world, American Top Team. So he's a proud Cuban American Hispanic guy fighter. And the reason he's coming up today is he had a very interesting speech recently that's been getting spread around that I want to talk about more, because he supports President Trump, as he should, as should many people in our country, anyone that wants to keep our country great. And that's what's been going on. Apparently on his timeline, he has lots of support from lots of people because he gave this speech a few days ago that really revealed a lot about him. It revealed a lot about this election and how the Democrats are kind of expecting the Hispanics to vote for them, just like how they expect the blacks and the other minorities to vote for them. Even alphabets are expected to be Democrats. And that's really getting on the nerves of those groups of people. They shouldn't be demanded these votes of them and then get shamed if they don't vote for them. And it just goes to show the Democrats just use these smaller groups to kind of like get votes. They just use them as props. They're not really caring about these minority communities or these alternative communities or these alphabet communities and things like that. They're just trying to win elections, and they'll pander to people if it'll suit them. And that's what's going on now. This guy very much is refuting the whole notion that Hispanics have to vote for the liberals and the Democrats. He's supporting Trump. This actually happened with another UFC fighter a few weeks back who won a fight and even got a call from the president. He was really cool too. So it really just seems like this is a good kind of American sport. This is something we could get behind. It's very refreshing too, since so many other sports are super woke and super pro BLM and pro all this progressive baloney, this fake news stuff, talking about all this racism and supremacy that's not really there. So with that said, let's get to this speech. Let's see what the guy has to say, because I think he's really well spoken and makes a lot of great points.
I'm going to let you in on something. The Democrats just think that they're entitled to the Latino vote. They think that we just have to hand it over to them. That's right. We sure as hell don't. Así mismo. Así mismo. They got to show us what they can do for us, what they can do for our communities. We're not going to buy the same wolf tickets and false promises that destroyed great countries like Venezuela and Cuba.
All right, this is an awesome point. This is something that gets brought up over and over again. We see the Democrats moving farther to the left, supporting socialist causes, creating groups like Democratic Socialist, and trying to prop up far left-wing communist people, communist-loving people like Bernie Sanders, who almost was the Democrat nominee and is still lauded in their far-left communities. And this guy is saying the right things. I mean, this is what people talk about. Venezuela and Cuba were ruined by communism. We don't want to go down that far left route. Other times this has failed too. Communism is what destroyed the Soviet Union and made it fall apart. Only people surviving there now have moved to capitalism. The only major power that had quote unquote successful communism was the Chinese, and that's because they have a very authoritarian, militaristic form of that kind of ideology. They are communist in a way, but they're also controlled by this communist party, which is militaristic, and it's very bad place to live. Like, you don't want to live in China. It's all no freedom. Everything's controlled by the government. They lock up reporters. You can't go on the open internet. Bad place right there. They're interning certain minorities, putting them in these internment camps, punishing them for their religious beliefs. And that's just a bad thing. We don't want to be part of communism. It's failed. It's given into these bad leaders. I'm going to go ahead and add some on. This guy is focusing on Latin America and the Hispanic ones, which is good. That is very close to home for us, for for Americans. I'm sure people in his community have relatives or something like that in Cuba or Venezuela, people that fled there. Why would you want to bring that here? It's just insane. And it's happened in other parts of the world too. We fought a war in Vietnam for many years that didn't go well, but the communists destroyed that country. There was Pol Pot in Cambodia. He killed many, many people in many disasters. Stalin and Lenin were bad communist leaders in Russia who had many people die, and so on and so forth. Mao killed many in China. It's a bad ideology. It's not something we want to bring to America, and that's where we'll certainly shift if Biden wins the election. Biden is going to be controlled and easily controllable by these far left-wing activists, and that's why someone smart, someone confident and strong like this fighter Jorge here, he's the one in a position to actually say something. He seems to be established enough that he doesn't have to worry too much about politics and ramifications. He's a good sportsman. He's taken part in this field for a long time, so he could speak his mind a little bit. And yeah, sure, this is sort of a celebrity endorsement, but it's different because typically these are always left-wing ones that are awful and not based on real information or facts. They just lie about Trump and call him racist, when in this case, this guy is listing out something true. We're talking about bringing socialism to America, an ideology that destroyed so many Latin American countries that are certainly sensitive issues to people and us people and Americans and all of us.
It's not going to happen. You know what else is not going to work for them? Playing Despacito on your cell phone to pander to us. Hell no.
So that's referencing the time. Apparently, Biden got a memo a few weeks back that the Hispanic vote wasn't going well for him. So he came out and played Despacito on his cell phone one time. We covered it. It was very cringe. He couldn't even come out at the right time. People clapped for him and he came out really late. And then when he got to the podium, he got his phone out and played it like he's some kind of old man who never saw a cell phone before. In addition, Despacito is a couple-year-old song that features lyrics that are in Spanish that are about being kind of forward to women, being romantic and sniffing on them even, and that's just a bad look for Biden to say. And the worst part really is, like this guy said, it's pandering to Hispanics. That's something we said when it happened, and it's good to get confirmation from an actual figurehead from this community saying, yeah, we don't want to be pandered to, we get it, we see through that crap, we want people that'll actually help us, which is certainly going to be more likely be Trump and the conservatives.
You got to give us some credit for having heads on our shoulders. I'm going to wrap this up. Some words of Barack Obama. He said elections have consequences. That is true. And those words have never been more true than they are today. We either re-elect President Trump and keep America great. Amen.
So great reactions from the crowd too, worth noting how they kind of boo Obama. It's not the best room for the liberals. They could tell that this group, these either UFC fans or Hispanic fans of Jorge or any kinds of people that could be in there, it's just a good sign that they're getting woke, like a real good woke, not the liberal kind of use of that term that doesn't mean what you think it means. We're talking about people actually getting red-pilled, as we might say it.
Or we let Joe Biden destroy the greatest country the world has ever seen. Now, I'm a professional athlete and I've been one for most of my life, so I've always seen things through a sports lens. That makes Donald Trump our head coach, and before the global pandemic, we were winning Super Bowls. And when you're winning Super Bowls, you don't fire the coach.
Great point, great analogy. Just really, really strong performance from this guy, which is pretty unexpected. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking, but he isn't necessarily a speaker. He's not a public performer in this way. Sure, he handles high stress situations. He has his own sport and his own fighting style and stuff, and that's cool, but it's also very interesting to see him give such a great speech, nail all the points, talk about the liberal pandering, talk about how Trump and the country was doing great. You got to kind of get a little nuance in there, though, because I think what Democrats were counting on was people not recognizing the fact that the pandemic was a curveball coming from a foreign adversary that wasn't little to do with what we were going on with here. Like, it wasn't Trump's fault, like the Dems will try to pretend and try to get you to believe. Really, we were doing great until the pandemic and all these lockdowns and stuff, and it shows that Trump was still good. He was on the right track. We were winning Super Bowls, as he put it here, and I think that's a good way to say, yeah, we should keep this coach in because he's already been doing well.
Doesn't matter if you don't like the plays he runs, the players he puts on the field, or what he says on Twitter. You sure as hell don't replace him for another coach that's been in the business for 47 years at every level and never won a
Great final thoughts. Had to cut out a few inappropriate words there, but the point still stands. Biden has been in political office for 47 years. He's got nothing done. He hasn't won any games. He is a poor coach, a poor player, a poor politician, and just not someone you want running the country. I mean, all the stuff that he pretends that he's going to do, he could have already done. He was vice president for 8 years. He had the ear of the president. He could have gotten other things done while vice president. I mean, the vice presidency can be a pretty ceremonial position. It just kind of depends on how much authority the president gives them. They could give him assignments. They could give him lots of authority, like how George W. Bush did with Cheney. He could be in charge of foreign policy or whichever they choose. You know, the president can assign people certain duties and then oversee how they conduct them. But the point is, Biden has had all these promises. He acts like he was going to get all this stuff done, but he had a chance. He was vice president from 2008 to 2016, and they just made the country worse. They heightened racial tensions. They destroyed our healthcare system. They had this whole Obamacare and ruined that. They ruined school lunches. I mean, what else was Biden doing? Think about it like this. We talked about this in other videos, how Biden was in charge of foreign policy, specifically with Ukraine, and that's what he decided to focus on. He didn't try to help the country. He didn't try to fix things. He went to Ukraine and got his son a very cushy job, and then got himself these kinds of meetings with these businessmen that were going to hire his son and funnel money through that. And then they also coordinated with Russia, and Russia, an oligarch there, gave Hunter Biden millions of dollars. So that's the kind of things that are going to happen in a Biden presidency, whereas the Trump administration is going to help actual Americans, and Trump isn't there to make money and prop up his kids. They're already rich and awesome and doing great. That about wraps things up. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. What do you think about this speech? What do you think about this fighter and his thoughts on the election? Also hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you on the next video.